Shelter, Chapter 4, Part 1. I met up with Emma 3 blocks away. That, she said, cracking a smile for the first time since I've known her, was awesome. Yeah, I said, I guess. So, where do you want to break into next? Funny. And then I couldn't help but smile. What? She said. I started laughing. What? You, I said, selling Girl Scout cookies? She laughed too. The sound was melodious. What? You don't buy me as a Girl Scout? I just looked at her in all the black clothes, with the black nail polish and the silver stud in her eyebrows. Yeah, nice uniform. Maybe I'm the goth Girl Scout. She lifted her cell phone to show me. Oh, I typed the license plate number of that black car. I don't know what you can do with it, but I figured, what the heck? I have an idea about that. Can you text it to me? Ema nodded, typed a little, hit send. So, what are you going to do now? She asked. I shrugged. What could I do? I couldn't call the police. What would I tell them? A man in a dark suit walked into a garage? For all I knew, he lived there. And how would I explain to the officer my being inside the house for the first place in the first place? I told her about the photograph, the butterfly emblem, and the light in the basement. When I finished, Ema said, Whoa. You say that a lot. What? Whoa? I said. Actually, I don't, but hanging around you, well, it seems awfully apropos. I checked the time on my cell phone. It was time to meet Spoon so we could break into the main office. If I made it through today without going to jail, it would be a miracle. I have to go, I said. Thanks for the adventure. Thanks for being the lookout. Mickey? I turned and looked at her. What are you going to do about Bat Lady? I don't know, I said. What can I do? She told you your dad's alive. So, yeah, so? We can't just let that go. We. Ema blinked and looked away. There were tears in her eyes. You okay? I asked. Her saying that to you? Ema said. It's so mean. We should egg her house. Except then it would look and smell better. She wiped her face with her tattoo forearm. I better go. Ema started walking away. Wait, where do you live? I asked. Do you need me to walk you home? She frowned. Are you for real? Walk me home? Yeah, right. She hurried her step and vanished around the corner. Thought about chasing after her, but she'd dig into me about the fat girl needing protection, and I didn't have time for that. Spoon was waiting for me. I jogged back to the school and found him alone in the parking lot. I pushed away all the images of the Bat Lady and her house. I was still riding on the adrenaline wave. Might as well see where it led me. Spoon was sitting on the hood of a car. Hey, Spoon. Guess what? He jumped down from the hood. Beyonce's favorite makeup is mascara, but she's allergic to perfume. He waited expectantly for me to reply. Um, Interesting, I said. I know, right? I should have nicknamed him Random instead of Spoon. Spoon led the way toward the side door of the school. Using the card in his hand, he swiped it through the magnetic reader. There was a click, and the door opened. We entered. There's no place more hollow, more soulless than a school at night. The building had been created for life, for constant motion, for students rushing back and forth, some confident, most scared, all trying to figure out their place in the world. Take that away, and you might as well have a body drained of all its blood. Our footsteps in the long corridors echoed so loudly, I wondered if our shoes were amped up. We headed for the main office without speaking. When we reached the glass door, Spoon had the key at the ready. Oh, if my dad finds out, Spoon whispered. Well, no revival of Guys and Dolls for me. He looked back at me. I guess I should have given him an out here, but I didn't. Maybe because that I was that desperate, or maybe because I don't like guys and dolls. He turned the key and we stepped into the office. The front desk was tall enough so you could lean on it. 3 school secretaries sat there. Going behind the desk was, of course, strictly off limits. So I confess I got a little thrill when we did just that. Spoon took out a pen light. It's darker in there. We can't turn on the lights, okay? I nodded. We stopped at the door that read guidance. I always found that term wrong, wonderfully vague. The dictionary definition of the word is advice or information aimed at resolving a problem. In short, an attempt to help. But to us students, the word, this office, is far more frightening. It conjures up our college prospects, growing older, getting a real job, our future. Guidance seems more like a term for cutting us loose. Spoon fished out another key and opened the door. The school I knew had 12 guidance counselors. Each had a small private office within this larger office. Most of the doors were unlocked. We entered the first private office. It belonged to a young guidance counselor named Miss Corty. Like most people, she had left her computer on for the night, settling for standby mode. Spoon handed me the penlight and nodded for me to go ahead. I sat at her desk and started typing. As soon as I hit the keys, the following prompt popped up. Username, password. Darn. I hit the return key several times. Nothing. I sighed and looked back at Spoon. Do you have a clue? The username's easy, Spoon said. It's just her email. Janice Cordy, so it's jcordy at theschool.edu. And the password? Spoon pushed the glasses up his nose. Well, that's going to be a problem. I try to think about paper files. They're kept off site. And if Ashley is a new student, she probably doesn't even have one yet. I sat back, defeated. Then I let myself think about Ashley. My shoulders relaxed. I thought about the way she nervously played with a loose thread on her sweater. I thought about the way she smelled like wildflowers. And when I kissed her, she tasted gently like berries. I know how corny this sounds, but I could kiss her all day and never get bored. Barf, right? I thought of the way she looked at me sometimes, like I was the only person in the universe. And then I thought that this girl, the one who looked at me like that, had just vanished without a goodbye. It made no sense. I had to think harder. Miss Cordy was young, the youngest guidance counselor at the school. Something about that triggered a thought. I turned to Spoon. Who are some of the oldest guidance counselors? Oldest? You mean like age? Yes. Why? Humor me? Mr. Betts, Spoon said without hesitation. He's old and he teaches a class on Shakespeare because he knew him personally. I had seen Mr. Betts in the corridor. He's a walking stick and wore a bow tie. I thought about it. He could definitely be my man. Which office is his? Why? Just show me, okay? When we got back into the hallway, Spoon pointed to the office in the far corner. As we headed toward it, I peered quickly into the office as we passed, glancing at the computer monitors for any post-it notes. No luck. Mr. Betts's desk had an antique globe, bookends, and a matching pen holder with his name engraved on it. There was an old swing line stapler and several Lucite awards. I sat at his desk and turned on the computer. The same prompt came up. Username, password. Spoon looked at me and shrugged. What did you expect? Exactly this. I opened the drawer on the right, pens, pencils, paper clips, and a box of matches, a pipe. I moved the middle drawer and I looked inside and smiled, said, Bingo. Huh? While it never pays to generalize, those who appear not to be the most computer literate often rely on keeping old fashioned notes so that they don't forget stuff like their usernames and passwords. There, on the classic 3x5 index card, Mr. Betts had written the following: Globe Theater, 1599. If that wasn't a password. Spoon said Shakespeare's Globe Theater was originally built in 1599. It was destroyed by a fire June 29, 1613, and rebuilt in 1614 and closed in 1642. A modern reconstruction of it was opened in 1997. Terrific. Mr. Betts' first name was Richard. I typed in the R. Betts username and typed Globe Theater 1599 as the password. I hit the return button and waited. A little hourglass spun for a second before the screen came up. Welcome, Richard. Spoon smiled and held up a palm. I high-fived him. I clicked the link for student files and then typed in the name Kent, Ashley. When her photograph came up, the one we'd both taken for our student IDs the first day of school, I felt a little hand reach into my chest and squeeze my heart. Man, Spoon said, no wonder you want to find her. If you were creating a geographic dictionary and needed a definition for demure, you would use her expression in this picture. She looked very pretty, sure, beautiful even, but what you really felt was that she was quiet and shy and somewhat uncomfortable posing. Something about her really called out to me. Her file was brief. Her parents were listed as Patrick and Catherine Kent. Their home and their address was on Carmenta Terrace. We're there. I grabbed a pen from Mr. Betts' holder and I found a scrap paper. Fingerprints, Spoon said, pointing to the pen. For that matter, your fingerprints are probably all over his keyboard. I made a face. You think they're going to dust for prints? They might. Then I chose to live dangerously, I said. I jotted down the address and the phone number. I scanned the rest of the page. It said, transcripts pending. I guess that meant they didn't have anything from her old school. There was a list of her current classes, but I already knew those, and the rest of the screen was blank. I was tempted to check out my own file, just out of curiosity, I guess, but in its place, pretended to wipe all my fingerprints and followed Spoon out. Once outside, I checked my phone. Another voicemail from Uncle Myron. I ignored it. Darkness has fallen now. I looked up at the stars in the ink black sky. It was clear night. Do you know where Carmenta Terrace is? I asked Spoon. Sure, it's on my way home. Do you want me to take you? I said I did, and off we went.